Hey Dave, good to see
Hey
you, man.
Steve. Yeah, glad to be back with you.
That's right. Yeah, awesome. We're here. It's the day after Easter that we're recording this, and I know you and I were having conversation a little bit last week, and then again just before we started recording here, and thought really that you had maybe some thoughts that you could share with pastors who are coming, coming out of Easter, and what are some things that you would encourage them to be thinking about, or obviously taking time to celebrate and
Yeah.
those kind of things. But this is kind of obviously Easter is a huge moment. And then we're transitioning into a different season of the church calendar typically. So, yeah, what are some thoughts that you have about that?
Yeah, first just want to say congratulations, you made it.
Right,
We kind
exactly.
of feel that finish line all throughout the year, I think, of
Yeah.
when Easter's over, there's a kind of transition in the calendar. And I think that's especially important because, as we think about the church calendar, there's the spring, there's the fall season, and then there's the spring season. And oftentimes during the fall, you think if I just make it through the fall, I'm going to get a little break. And then, we start the spring. But I don't know about other people who are listening. That break after fall isn't ever nearly as long as I think it is in my head. It's like, oh, we are going right back in to
Yeah.
spring season. And so, to be honest with you, I mean, most of the pastors and leaders probably listen to this probably feel like they've been on a marathon run. And Easter is a great day because, of course, we're celebrating, birth, life, death, burial, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus. But it also marks a finish line where oftentimes we get to see the fruit of our labor for an entire year. And
Mm.
so I know a lot of the leaders that I work with had great services that included lots of different baptisms and celebration. You're often seeing the full scope of people that are in your ministry versus a portion of them, a week at a time. And so, one, I just hope pastors and leaders are celebrating, today from just the great year of ministry and ministry season that they've had. And, I know several of them that I've been talking to. This has been just a great season to see what God has done.
Yeah. Well, before we get into maybe some thoughts about kind of what's next, talk a little bit about just a little bit more about what you were just saying there. This has been a really interesting season, I'll say maybe the last 6 months,
Right.
with some real surges in, I'll say, attendance or responsiveness from people, at least many church leaders. Of course, it's not all, but many
Right.
churches have seen that. And anything that you would want to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably for the first time in quite a while, at least since COVID, I mean, the pastors we're talking to feel like they're hitting their stride back from
Mm,
that a little bit. All the research is indicating, I mean, we went to the Billy Graham Evangelistic Conference at Wheaton. All their research was saying that young people are coming back to church, so
right.
there's a resurgence that is happening, across the board in many different places. And so, I think for those of us that have been in the long slog of pre-COVID, post-COVID kind of world, this really marks a sense of a return to stride.
Mm,
Not a return to normal. I think that's different than stride.
yeah,
I think,
right.
teams catching their breath and really feeling like this full ministry season was something they could hang their hat on as they build toward the future, those different kinds of things.
Awesome. Sweet. So now as we're coming off of Easter, and this is Easter always falls obviously around this time of year,
Right.
but it is kind of early
It
this year,
is,
right?
yeah.
Like with the first, basically the first Sunday in April. And I know for a lot of churches, or at least the churches that I work with, there's at this point, like I say, it's the Monday after Easter. You really have maybe 4 or 5 weeks that where people are still kind of in their normal
Right.
rhythm during kind of the school year, and Mother's Day is kind of that
Yeah.
next somewhat milestone, and then we really shift into to summer, right? So as churches are kind of ramping, there is kind of a ramping down for sure
Right.
that happens as we head towards summer. At least I'll say in the not if you're in student ministry, right? Student
Right.
ministry usually ramps up
Mhm.
right during the summer, and some kids ministry as well. But for adult ministry, senior pastor, lead pastor, how should they be potentially thinking about this time period, kind of post Easter, and this next season, this month, these months between now and kind of that fall ministry ramp back up?
Yeah. I don't know about should, but we can at least give some
Got
opportunity.
it. Nice.
So with that,
Can.
I do
Yeah.
think the early Easter gives us an opportunity of April before the craziness of May. Like you said, Mother's
Right.
Day's coming, graduations are coming, all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And summer, even for children's and kids ministries, marks a different kind of ministry than the kind of ministry we're doing throughout the year. And so
Absolutely.
we do have, I think, a strategic opportunity here in April to help make the summer matter for long-term kind of benefits of our church in ways that we don't always get. So the kind of extended, weeks in April give us a chance to get ahead on how to
Mm.
use June, July, August well as we start to kick off toward the fall. Again, May's going to be crazy. At least every ministry I've worked in, crazy May
Yeah.
is what we kind of talked about it
Right.
because there's
Yep.
so many things that are happening in the month of May. But before crazy May hits, there's some opportunities for us in April. Now, I know for me as a leader, whether it's in a church or in an organization, there's always this tension between if it's a church, preaching and leading for the senior leader.
Mm.
Or if you're not in senior leadership, it's the difference between delivery and development, and that tension that you're always holding. And throughout the fall and spring, the emphasis has to go on delivery. The emphasis has to go on preaching. I mean, Sunday's coming, every 7 days, and you totally get it.
Yep.
But if you're the lead pastor or if you're in charge of ministry of some kind, sometimes it can feel like a lot of your leadership stuff that you would like to get done is on hold.
Mm.
Well, in this next change of seasons, we have the opportunity to put to put development before delivery and leadership before preaching. And I think that's just a strategic point on the calendar to actually make some strides on some things that we've been trying to get to all throughout the year. And so maybe what we could talk about in this conversation is just some ways that we could change focus from delivery to development, from, preaching to leadership, and maybe some ways to use our summer best to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, am I right then in kind of assuming you would encourage pastors to at least consider um some kind of a rotation or changing their preaching schedule specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think summer provides this great opportunity. People are traveling a lot, probably your normal modes of delivery are going to shift a little bit
Hmm.
anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity. And before we get into the strategic stuff, I do think it's important to say, make sure you're getting your rest in this time,
Mm.
whatever that means. Like even if you just quite personally, you need if you haven't planned your vacation yet, April, plan your vacations. Get the rest that you need. For some pastors and leaders, they need more than a vacation. They need some sabbatical time. Hopefully you're forward thinking into those kinds of things. But don't just think of your personal rest, think of your team's rest as well.
Hmm.
Because sometimes, we condition off the lead pastor to make sure they get their rest, but we don't actually give our teams rest. Your team needs rest to be at their best as well. So make sure your team's getting rest. If there's people on your team that need sabbatical, make sure you're doing that, and make sure you're celebrating the work that God has done all year. It's always easy just to move into next. Take some time to celebrate and make sure you have scheduled rest over the summer. Now we can shift into some of the strategy stuff, but I think that
Got
that's
it.
got to be strategy number one, no matter
Yeah.
where you're at for you and your team. And I'm just going to emphasize again, and your team,
Right.
because sometimes they get neglected in some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But second, in particular to the preaching calendar, and I would just say ministry in general,
Hmm.
summer is a great opportunity to give young leaders opportunities. So whether that's in the preaching calendar, whether that's in ministry things that you're doing, it's kind of a fail-safe environment
Hmm.
to to develop other leaders by giving them opportunities that they normally don't get throughout the year. And so if you're the lead pastor looking at your preaching schedule and just saying, how do I give away preaching opportunities in the summer in a way that, it's pretty much a fail-safe environment, but I also know is developing them as leaders with opportunities they don't normally get. So I would just encourage you, yeah, take your time to breathe, but as you're doing so, give other leaders an opportunity to lead in a way that they haven't, throughout the year. It's a great
Yeah.
opportunity to develop your bench, great opportunity to have other voices be heard in your congregation
Hmm.
that sometimes are functioning below the surface but aren't, raised above the surface. Real great opportunity to just kind of give them the week to be able to lead.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good. Speaking as someone who was many times, I was a worship leader, executive pastor. I would be one of those people who would kind of fill in during
Yeah.
those times. One of the things that I know was helpful to me is I worked with specifically one lead pastor who not only did he give me opportunities, but then even when it wasn't immediate because of his schedule or whatever, we would then sit down later after the
Mhm.
fact and
Yeah.
we would go through
Right.
the message that I preached, or we would go
Yeah.
through and he would give me feedback and he would
Yeah.
say, this was really excellent. You're at your best as a speaker, as a preacher when you are doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So look for opportunities to do that.
Yeah, those coaching opportunities are invaluable. I mean, like they're just so valuable to
Yeah.
a culture, and the opportunity for lead pastors to become coaches during the season versus
Hmm.
deliverers is just incredibly
Yeah.
important. I would also say too, if you ever want to give your team a break, you could consider bringing someone in from the outside, and
Right.
not just preachers, but worship leaders, all those different
Hmm.
kinds of things. So it allows you to have maybe something that you can push toward as a special kind of Sunday, but also gives your team a break, not just the
Yeah.
preacher a break, but your team a break. Anytime you can bring stuff in from the outside, just as a deep breath, I think it's
Yeah.
worth the investment personally, just for the rest that it gives your team.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep, for sure. And it also, I think, for the people in your congregation, it's always
Right,
fantastic for them to hear, like you're saying, hear those other voices, hear a maybe a slightly different take on
right.
what that preaching looks like, or even the worship looks like. Yeah, I think that's really good. What are some other ways when you think about shifting maybe out of delivery and into development? What are there any other specific areas that you would encourage pastors to think about?
Yeah, I mean, especially because the wind of the year kind of boils down a little bit. It does give you an opportunity to invest in your people.
Hmm.
And so, whether that is key volunteers or whether it's your staff, hopefully this season gives you an opportunity to say, you know what, we may not meet on these regular rhythms for some of the delivery stuff we do. What would it look like to change our meeting schedule up for
Mm,
development in this season when we're not under the pressure of delivery? There might just be some ways to take some times that are usually committed to other things and recommit them to a different way of doing things over this season that invests in your team, whether that's your staff or your volunteers in a different kind of way. So I would just encourage if those are already rhythms set, we may not need to change the rhythm as much as we change what we do during the rhythm to
got it.
actually, invest in people rather than just invest in the next thing that's coming.
Got it. Any specific tools or resources
Yeah.
that you have in mind that you would recommend?
One of the things that we're hearing from pastors a decent amount is just taking even some time to invest in my team's personal calling. is
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, we talk about rolling that out to your people, but some of the hesitancy that we see in pastors is I'm not even sure my staff, they know their role, but they don't know their calling. Like
Yeah.
what might it look like to help invest in them in that way? For a lead pastor, it might mean taking some days away, throughout the summer and doing some personal life design work that might be helpful to you as a leader beyond
Hmm.
just your normal kind of thing, but also thinking the same thing for your staff. Is there a way for us to invest in personal calling for them in a way that helps set them up to grow and really maximize who God's made them to be? So I think that that's definitely one. I think another is it's a great strategic time to reset vision. If you like have
Mm.
been hesitant to do that while you're delivering throughout the year, we got an extended summer this time. You have a
Hmm.
real opportunity to reset vision if that's something that you're thinking about um, in your midst. We would encourage that. Or, straight from us at Clarity House, we put a large emphasis on training. If you
Hmm.
want to retool some training skills,
Yeah.
summer's a great time to retool in regard to training, especially as all of your leaders are thinking about the fall kickoff. Just to take some time to help them ramp up their training skills could be huge for your team, because it's hard to do that while you're delivering, and so the summer gives us an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, that's good. We'll come back to those specific tools
Yeah.
in a minute, and I can kind of summarize the specifics on those. But for maybe people who haven't heard you talk about this before, give us just 3, 4, 5 minutes on you said before about like your staff. They may know their role, but
Yeah.
they're not clear about their calling. Talk about the difference there about what we mean by calling and what
Yeah.
you're thinking of that is obviously maybe incorporated in that role, but
Right.
also how calling is larger than that.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking that because I
Hmm.
think we do have a tendency as leaders to be either caught into the too general conversation or the too specific conversation. And so the general conversation around calling would be what we would talk about as as our general calling. That these are the things that all Christians are called to do. We're all called to love God and love people. We're all called to honor God. We're all called to glorify God. We're all called to serve. Like those are things that every Christian would have in common that we're all called to do. That's the general piece. The specific piece is we, for the most part, know the roles that we're supposed to play. We're a youth minister, or we're a children's minister, or we're
Yeah.
a pastor, and those are our temporary assignments. When we
Mm.
talk about what we're going to call special calling or unique calling, we're going to talk about the bridge between those two things. It's the thing that takes the general calling that we're all called to do and makes it personal for you, your
Mm.
personal calling, but it's also bigger than any one role that you play. It'll work through all the different roles that you play, over the course of your life. And so a lot of times we work in general, which is here's what we're all called to do. And then I know my current assignment. But if you don't do the real personal discovery, God discovery work of the middle ground, you can get lost between general calling and specific assignment. And
Yeah.
so taking some time to help them figure out that middle ground, I think is incredibly important for their personal development.
Yeah. Well, and I know what some of the things that we've seen. I know this is true for me personally, but also for different people that have gone through our, the tool that we have is handcrafted calling, who have gone through that is when you say it helps you in all of those roles, we all are serving multiple roles at the
Right.
same time, right? Like we've got a
Right.
role that we do that we're paid for, right? As
Mhm.
our job. But then I've got a role as a husband, I've got a role as a father, I've got a role as a friend, I've got a role as a son, right? Or those kinds of things. And that unique calling is something that spans all of those roles, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. So I mean, in our handcrafted calling piece that we've done, I think it's really important the way we've defined calling. We were going to define calling this way. It's the intersection where the depth of your purpose meets the scope of your influence. Let me say
Mm,
that again. It's the intersection where the depth of your purpose meets the scope of your influence. So, purpose is your motivated ability, it's where your passions and abilities overlap. And we would call this the never changing part of your calling. It's the thing that you're doing behind everything that you do. It's the thing that will continue to be true no matter what role you step into. And we're going to help people name that in 2 words. I love, the work that we do on that. And I love every time someone discovers their 2 words. It's a really energizing thing for them. But then if we click over to influence, if purpose is the never changing part of your calling, then influence is the ever changing part of your calling.
mm,
And that is always, growing. That like your families are changing, your family's
mm,
changing, your the people in your ministry are changing. Your circle of influence is very different from even season to season.
mhm,
And so, it's funny when we lead people through this, so many people think influence is what someone else has versus what they have. And even just helping them identify their circle of influence and then think about ways of growing their circle of influence. Like, how do you start living your purpose, your calling out now with the people who are in your circle? They'll start opening their circles up to you, and
mm,
your influence can continue to grow. But no matter what you do, your circle of influence is changing dynamically. And so we would always say your special calling is evolving
mm,
because there's the never changing. It's getting deeper. Your purpose is getting deeper, but not changing. There's the
mhm.
ever changing part of your influence that is in different seasons, different people.
Right.
But how do we be faithful in actually bringing our best to those circles of influence so that our influence is maximized in a healthy way? So, those are all the conversations of special calling that
Yeah.
when we're living in the general or just the specific, we don't take time to dig into.
Hmm.
And it can be debilitating because it keeps us out of what we're going to talk about as intrinsic motivation and only in
Mm,
extrinsic. It's what other people can talk you into. If you're talking to someone else, it's what you can talk them into doing. And so many times without, identifying that personal calling, even our roles with our best intentions become what's expected of us or what someone tells us to do, or what someone expects us to do, or what someone can motivate us to do. And even if we're faithful in doing that, we lose part of our motivation because it's all coming from the outside. Well, what would it look like if your team, had intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation? This could be a
mm.
huge motivator for teams that actually gives them fuel for the rest of the year that they wouldn't tap into maybe if they're only working on extrinsic motivation.
Awesome. So yeah, it's a way. Yeah, it is a way. It's interesting. You kind of ended there. It's a part of almost that refreshing and
Yeah.
re-energizing for the next ministry season, whatever that looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very
And
cool.
I mean, shameless plug, we have cohorts that are starting all the time. One in
Yep.
June that's starting that if you are parts of your team, you want to get into that, we would love to take them through that as a
Yes,
part
and
of it.
that's specifically you're talking about cohorts with our tool called handcrafted calling.
Right. Yes.
And so if you're interested in more information about that, you can go to clarityhouse.us/handcrafted. And you'll see all the information there. We've got a self-guided course that you can do. We really strongly encourage you to do that in a coach-led cohort because and I know you as pastors, you'll often say this to people in your church. It's true for all of us as well, is that life change happens best in community. There's something about going through processes like that with a group of other people, even if it's people that you've just met through that process, that changes that dynamic and not just keeps us accountable, but brings a depth to our experience that you
Right.
don't have when you're just going through that, on your own.
Yeah, whether that's self-led, whether it's cohort, or quite frankly, we'd be open to coming to do a 2-day with you and your team We do that from
Absolutely.
Clarity House a lot
Hmm.
as well. If you say, you know what, we're going to be all over the place this summer, but we got 2 days that I could dedicate to that, we would love, or even sometimes we can do a large portion of that just in one day. That'd be something that
Gotcha.
conversation we'd be open to having to coming in
Love
and
it.
steward that with your team.
Love it. And then I know you mentioned if you want to retool your training or your
Yeah.
ability to train and that kind of thing, we've got do you want to talk about the training design starter kit that we're
Yeah.
just basically just releasing?
Well, I'll talk about training in general and then maybe
Yeah,
click into that,
great.
because one of the
Hmm.
things that we emphasize a lot at Clarity House is that for churches that are future ready, like ready for the future, not insecure about the future, one of the big shifts that we would say we need to make is from simply being a teaching center to, yes, we want to be a great teaching center. How do we add a training center that complements our teaching center? Because again, as pastors and leaders, we live under the pressure of Sunday to Sunday. Our people live under the pressure of Sunday to Monday. And it's really hard. And then Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to translate what you get on Sunday to what you're doing on Monday. And so, in our clarity work, we do a lot of helping them identify what does maturity look like. We call that our dream disciple. But then the training center actually gives people practice at stepping into that kind of
Mm.
becoming that kind of disciple. And quite frankly, I mean, I won't project on everyone else, but I'll just tell you, for me personally, I didn't learn how to train in seminary. I loved my seminary experience, taught me to teach and preach. It gave me, excuse me, it gave me a
Oh,
lot of tools that I didn't have for me. Excuse me.
bless you.
For ministry. But it didn't teach me how to train. I learned how to train as a soccer coach. And
Mm.
so what we've experienced in churches that we've led to really define, what maturity looks like is they do want to take that second step of creating a training center, but they sometimes are unfamiliar with what training can look like. And so it just degenerates into teaching 2.0. And
Right.
so we're going to suggest that churches that are future ready, especially as you look at Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming up, that they desire to be trained in things.
Hmm.
But oftentimes, I mean, if this is true that young people are coming back to church, for us to be future ready, we've got to ready our ministry environments toward what it is that they are needing and looking for to become fully matured disciples of Jesus. And so, for that to happen, it means that we might need to make an investment in how we understand and think about training. So, of course, the easy way to do that is the starter kit that we've developed. You can
Hmm.
purchase the course and get some tools to improve your training. But the 1 day and 2 day experiences are times where we come in with your team and we actually help you design a training. And the design of that training isn't just that you get a training at the end of it, it actually starts helping you create a training culture. And the
Yeah.
testimony that we've seen all the way through it is we love that we got to design a training, but wow, this really uplifted our whole training culture. And so, if you want a training culture uplift, summer's a great opportunity to do that as well when the delivery pressure isn't so strong.
Yeah. So just to recap and summarize so far, we've got like, hey, this could be a great time to make a strategic investment in yourself or in the people around you related to calling,
Yeah.
and how that really energizes and refreshes and motivates people around the specific roles that they're doing right now, but maybe with a fresh lens and a deeper perspective on their purpose that goes beyond any one role. So we talked about
Yeah.
handcrafted.
So let me kind of bring
Yeah.
that I mean, calling would be an investment in who they are.
Mm,
Training would be an investment in what they can do.
nice. See, this is why you get the big bucks, man. I
Yeah.
it takes me 65 words for what you can say in 12.
I don't know about the big bucks, but we're trying to make it happen.
Right. Right. Got it.
Mhm.
Yep. No, that's really good. So yeah, we've got the investment in who they are. That's handcrafted. Investment in what they can do. That's training design. And again, you can go to
Yeah.
or go to clarityhouse.us/training design. There's a little hyphen in there. between training and design, but you can see like the 1 and 2 days that you mentioned are on there, or the starter kit that you can, again, it's called that for a reason, can get you started. But really, this would be a fantastic time to do that. Like you're saying, that investment of a 1 or a 2 day. And then I also know you talked about summer potentially being a place or a time when you could kind of refresh vision
Yeah.
a little bit. What do you want to say about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So just to translate that, calling and who they are,
Mhm.
training, what they can do. Vision is who we are and what we can do.
Yeah,
And
together.
so,
Got it.
versus a personal investment in the person, now we think about how about us as a team in
Hmm.
regard to, is there some clarity that we need to have about who we are? Four big questions: what we do, why we do it, how we do it, when we're successful, or where we're headed in the future. And again, you just have some opportunity to make that investment, whether that's bringing in someone from the outside or at least doing that, as a team in some form or fashion. One of the things that we battle for at Clarity House is we say it's not hard for a leader to have clarity. It's hard for a team to have shared clarity around these
Mm.
these big questions. And so, while I have no doubt pastors and leaders will be putting some of their time and energy towards some of those things, it's easy as a pastor or a leader to think, well, because I put some of my time toward those things, then we're all on the same page. And there's usually a gap between my assumptions as a leader on that and where the team actually is. And
Yep.
so we're going to say it's an opportunity to do some shared clarity work around who we are and where we're headed next, where God is leading us next, that we get some months that we can invest in those kinds of things in ways that might be harder throughout the year.
Yeah, that's really powerful because even if you're like, well, I feel like we're clear on like our big picture vision
Right.
and that's not really changed, there might be a tendency to say, well, that's not really necessarily something that we need. Whereas what you might need to do is simply I'll say gather the troops and say we're still heading this direction.
Right.
We're still doing that. Now let's talk about what does that look like in this next year? What does that look like then in this next 90 days? Or the kind of break it up into quarters and say what are we looking at? That all of that is a part of vision,
Yeah.
the way we think about it.
And especially for teams that, have been caught in building campaigns throughout the year,
Yeah.
what we see is oftentimes the building becomes the vision or the campaign becomes the vision.
Yeah.
And immediately you're having to answer the question next fall, what's next?
Hmm.
And if, I don't know about your experience, Steve, on kind of the giving campaigns, you get the pledges, but once people start seeing the building go up,
Hmm.
then it's like the vision is done. So why do I need to keep giving, right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
so, what's the vision beyond the building? What's the vision beyond the campaign? What's the vision
Yeah.
beyond the 1 year kind of thing that we were leading to? And oftentimes, we just don't take time to look at that as a team
Yeah.
in ways that could be, again, motivating to all of us because it's not just something that we've been tasked to do. We've actually been invited into the visioneering process.
Yeah.
And together we've heard what God is saying. And again, getting out of that extrinsic motivation, this is what my,
Hmm.
job description tells me to do versus no, this is what God is saying to us and where he is leading us next.
Hmm.
It's a different kind of motivation. It's
It is.
intrinsic motivation. It's, we've been part of the process and we get a chance to lead that out. And so all this is about putting fuel in the tank for
Yeah.
our team and for our leaders in a way that actually helps the year go better because there is extra fuel in the tank.
Yeah. Yep. And this is a fantastic strategic season to do those kinds
Right.
of things.
Yeah. But you
So
got
do
to
you
get
want to
ahead of it
recap?
in
Oh, go ahead.
April. If you got to get ahead of it in April,
Right.
in my
Yes.
opinion. Like if you wait
Yeah.
to June to the craziness of May,
Gonna be too late.
then it's too late. So like use
Put
the
some
four
things on the
weeks in
calendar. Yeah.
April to really get ahead of it so that you
Hmm.
can make sure everyone's going to be around for the investment that you do make in June or July.
Right.
Get ahead of it now, right? Like
Exactly.
right now we don't
Right.
always have this opportunity. This year we do. Let's
Yeah.
get ahead of it now.
That's great. Do you want to recap those three again real quick with your nice summaries
Yeah,
about
yeah. So
that?
Investment in calling is, an investment in who people
You know
are,
who
who
they
your,
are.
who your team is. Investment in training is an upgrade and an investment in what they can do. Vision is an investment in who we are and what we can do. So it goes from
Yeah,
personal to kind of corporate.
awesome.
And all those things you have to get on the calendar. We always
Hmm.
know, from our end of things, the time is as hard as the money to invest in those things. And
Yes.
so April, while people are still getting everything on the calendar, gives you an opportunity to park the necessary time in May, June, July, and even the
Yeah.
first part of August to say, we want to invest in your rest. We want people to go on vacation, but are there some strategic moments when we're all here that we can
Hmm.
do some things that we don't normally do?
Yeah. Yep. And we have a that's fantastic. And we do have a visionary planning retreat, right? That we
Right.
can come
Yeah.
in and
Two
do.
days. Yep. 2 days.
If people would, like you're saying, if people want some help, so that, I'm telling you, as an executive pastor, when I was an executive pastor, it's so helpful to have, we did this a few times, to have someone who can come and facilitate so that I didn't have to be the facilitator. I could participate. Same thing I know for the lead pastor. It's like, yeah, you could probably lead, quote unquote, lead that process yourself. But the experience for you as a leader and the experience even for your team, where you function as a participant, not the facilitator, is going to change that dynamic significantly. And it's worth, like you're saying, it's worth that investment. I've never done that, whether it's been a decision that I made as an executive pastor to say we're going to bring this person in, or that when I was a worship leader and the pastor would say, "Hey, we're going to do this thing." I've never left one of those times, frankly, and thought we didn't really get anything out of that. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's
Right.
pretty amazing, right? Like it does,
Yeah,
it's almost
absolutely.
like there's a part of it that you go, yeah, who facilitates it matters, but what matters the most is dedicating that time, which is exactly what
Yeah,
you're saying, right?
absolutely. I mean, the power of facilitator is that it protects the senior leader's voice.
Yeah,
When you're facilitating it and trying to speak into it, you just go hoarse
yeah,
personally, or your people go tone deaf to what it is
yeah,
that you're saying. So bringing in a facilitator protects your voice to speak loudest for what matters most. And that's what I see my job as doing whenever I'm coming in.
yep.
It's saying I'm stewarding a process where a
Hmm.
team can speak, but I'm also protecting the lead pastor or the lead leader's voice in
Hmm.
such a way that they can be heard on the things that matter most. And
Yeah, that's really good.
when that happens, the team they care about what the lead pastor cares about.
Yeah,
They just sometimes that gets lost in all the other thing that's happening when you're trying to facilitate that conversation.
yeah,
And so,
yep.
hopefully if we're doing our job well, we're creating the opportunity for that kind of moment where the lead pastor gets to speak clearly
Hmm.
around the things that matter most, and together the team is energized toward those things.
Yeah, yep. That's really good. Well, I'm going to wrap up the video here in a second, but just so you guys know, we'll have links in anywhere you can view this video, whether it's on YouTube or we'll have it embedded on our site. We'll make sure that we've got links to all of these different resources, tools, things that you could have Clarity House come alongside and guide you through, so that those things are easy for you to find. But of course, you can always just reach out to us through the website. I know, Dave, you'd love to have conversations with pastors and help them think
Yeah,
through and
absolutely.
plan out what their summer needs to look like, and how, especially how Clarity House might be able to help them really get the most out of whatever investment that they're making in the summer. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
sweet.
we can have my appointment calendar in there as well.
Yeah,
People can have a conversation, and
great.
I really just want to make sure people here, this isn't like a summer advertisement kind of thing
Right. No.
for Clarity House. What this really is saying use your summer well. Um,
Hmm.
make sure you get some rest. Make sure your people get some rest. Make sure you're intentional about the investments that you're making. And if Clarity House can help you do that better, we would
Hmm.
love to come alongside you and help you do that.
Yeah. Yep. Fantastic. Sweet. Any other closing thoughts? That felt like a closing thought.
Yeah, I think that's it, man. I think you got it all
Okay.
out of me today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the closing thought is this: if you're not intentional in April, it will be August before you know it,
Yeah.
and again, you'll be leaning on the tools of extrinsic motivation in people,
Hmm.
and those can only get you so far. The fuel runs
Yep.
out quick, so just take some time to put some fuel in the small fuel tank. We use the illustration all the time,
Yeah.
Steve. It's easy in ministry. You know, the illustration we give it is to be a gas truck that's on the side of the road because you're out of gas. Lots of gas in the big tank for everybody else, no
Yeah.
gas in the small tank for
Mm,
yourself. And that's true of teams as well. And so
exactly.
really what we're saying is use the summer, put some gas in the small tank
Hmm.
because it's going to be August before you know it, and you're going to need to get the big tank in a place where other people can get gas, but
Right.
don't leave yourself or your team out of gas on the side of the road.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Always enjoy talking to you, man.
Me
Thanks
too.
for that. And yeah, talk to you soon.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.